Every time I looked at it and couldn't do it, I was terrified. But the day that I finally did do it, it was I was kind of confused by how calm I felt.
What's up, guys? Today's guest is a world-renowned parkour athlete with over 250,000 followers on TikTok, following his journey across rooftops around America. Please welcome to the JAMCast, Mr. Nick Ortiz. What's up, dude?
What's going on, boy? How's it hanging?
Dude, I'm chilling, man. It's supposed to be like 109 degrees where I am today, so I'm just staying inside doing podcast.
Let's see if California goes back on fire. You know, it's about approaching that season, isn't it?
It's crazy, man. What's the weather like where you are? You're out in New York now, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I'm hanging out in Pennsylvania right now, okay. But I bounce into New York like once a week. But you get that really nice, beautiful, humid, about 98 degrees roughly on the daily. But it's starting to cool down now. In the mornings, we have those brisk, like almost 50-degree mornings where you're like, oh, I definitely need a sweater now. Yeah. But then midday, you're like a sweaty mess of swamp.
Totally. See, I'll put up with 109 degrees just simply because we don't have real winter here. Like, it's only snowed one day my entire life, you know?
Yeah, dude, I thought it was kind of a trade-off, though, because then in Cali, it gets, like, too hot to actually be outside. So you kind of, you give one, you take one. So I don't know which one actually is rougher. 100%,
dog. Yeah, it's such a crazy time, man. And so when did you relocate back over to the East Coast for as long as I knew, as long as I was following you, a lot of your videos were always in Denver. Did you actually live in Denver, or were you just always there visiting for training?
Yeah, so I actually lived in Denver for closer to 4 years, if I'm not mistaken. I'm originally from Staten Island, New York.
Dope.
And yeah, Shaolin, Wu-Tang, what up? My mom used to hang out with RZA back in the day. At least she told me that. I don't know how true it is.
Okay.
But yeah, so I moved back out this way around December. I was out traveling in Vegas and, where was I? LA right before that, for like 2 months. And so December of 2019, I came back out this way and kind of was hanging out, and then Corona hit and was like, cool, I'm gonna chill in Pennsylvania until sort of I can get out of this sort of pandemic thing, and I'm not it's not a problem to be in a crazy populated area as much.
Totally. And do you have any family in Pennsylvania, or what made you choose PA over anywhere else?
Yeah, so actually my parents moved out here like when I was 19, and that's kind of what started me on my journey of bouncing around all over the place, because they left New York, and I was like, well, I don't really want to be in PA, so I'm just gonna wing it and start sleeping on floors and stuff.
So the time that you spent in Denver for those 4 years, what made you move out to Denver? Was it with the goal of going out there to train at all those spots, or like what took you out there?
Pretty much. So basically, long story short, obsessive with parkour, think about it like 24/7. Actually went to Allerup in Denmark the year before I moved to Denver. So in 2015, I spent 6 months out there and just trained for 6 months straight. It was amazing, and basically was like, I want to keep pushing forward. And I had known Dylan Baker from online and everything, and basically I met Brandon when I was in Copenhagen. And so I was just like, I'm going to move to Denver and basically pick these two guys' minds and sort of figure out how they approach this whole height thing.
Wow.
Because that's where I was really obsessed with it. And so that's kind of what I did. I basically moved there, started training with them as much as possible, and then from then on out, it was basically, it was like a really particular 8-month period where I would wake up at 6 a.m., eat breakfast, be out by like 7, and just go hit the rooftops and just do anything that scared me that was within range.
No way. That is crazy, man. Yeah, I literally was going to ask you, obviously, if you had a relationship with Dylan before you moved there, because at one point, obviously, like in my personal opinion, and I think a lot of people would back me up, Dylan was probably one of the best parkour athletes in all of America at that time, especially when it came to height training and fear training.
I got to be real with you, dude. I would say even to today's standard, he still is like the reigning champ. He's done some things that still so many people won't touch yet. And I don't know, I've just seen him do some incredible stuff, and some of the ideas that we were kind of working on before he kind of fell off a little bit, it was a little bit wild, especially his ideas of these sort of figuring out runs from the top. So we were really big into sort of, okay, can we get on top of a 5-story garage, not prep any of the levels, and just do it?
Wow.
And so we were pushing more in that direction. He did a couple, and I did like 1 or 2. And I was like, this is rough, dude. Like, this is really scary. It's like first try or die for real. Like,
yeah.
That's crazy. And so like, how many years had you been training at that point before you made the decision to go out there and train with someone at such a high level as his? And what initially got you into the sport?
So, dang, what am I? I'm 12 years in now. That was 4 years ago. Was that 7 years? 8 years?
Okay.
I think I was 8 years in.
Wow.
When I moved to Denver. And so it took me a really long time. Like, I feel like a lot of people, I was never a reckless person. I always was down to try more sketchy stuff, but I never put myself to the point where I was down to hurt myself for something. And so I was really kind of scared to push heights a lot for an extremely long time. And then eventually, like on the 8-year mark, things started clicking a little bit more. And especially just being in Denver and around those kinds of people that were pushing it more really helped me, like, seeing it get done actually. I was like, oh, okay, seeing it in person makes it feel more realistic as something to approach. And so that was a nice step that made it a lot easier. And as far as like what got me into parkour, I was just a kid in high school. I was 15. One of my friends from middle school before that, he knew this one kid who happened to be in my history class who messed around with parkour for a couple of years before that. And I was like, oh, cool, I want to learn. And basically he tried showing me how to do a wall run. I fell off a wall and then I was hooked. And it basically didn't, that's all I got. It just didn't stop from there. I was a skater / nerd before that. Like, didn't really have many friends, just played lots of video games. Then I found parkour and was like, oh, I'm going to do video games for real.
Dang, that's great. And so the origins of your training, where were you at that point? Were you still back in New York training or like?
So I was in Staten Island.
Ah, okay. So back then, New York scene, like, did you get a chance to train with guys like Shaw back in the days or like Max Henry? Like, who was in the scene back then? Because that was like...
So when I first, so here's the thing. Staten Island itself is kind of this weird pocket of New York, kind of separated from the rest of the boroughs, especially.
Yeah.
So like Long Island's a little bit more accessible to the city, it seems, than Staten Island is. Like, you have to take the whole ferry and everything in. And so we didn't really have a community. So I didn't really talk to anyone in the parkour community until I was probably like a year and a half, 2 years in.
Oh, wow.
Basically, it was my friends and I that we just knew parkour from the internet, and we're in high school, and we're like, we're going to try learning this thing. And that was it for 2 years. And so it was fully bare bones, like, figure it out. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Like, I was going to watch videos and see what they do and then try it.
Dang. Okay.
Yeah, basically just, that's pretty much where it started. In 2 years in, I think you know Ishmael Okendo. I know he was the first guy in the New York community I met, and I was like, oh, this guy's legit, what's going on here? And then once I started talking to him is where I started taking my training, like, actually as training and not just some kid being dumb and jumping off shit.
That's crazy, man. So literally, like, the foundations of your training were just watch the internet, monkey see, monkey do, just kind of replicating stuff you saw.
Basically, yeah, that's all my training has ever been. It's the way I found it, and it's the only way I can kind of do it now. Like, even kind of when people start teaching me, and this might be a pride thing, I don't know, I get like agitated, but it's not because I feel like I know more than them. It just feels like it's not the way that I learned. I feel like I just learned through trial and error and piecing things together. Not to say that I don't mind that, like, any sort of tip I'm not going to take, because some people just know more stuff than me. But it's like a general sense when I'm really working on something that especially I've put a lot of time into, I'm kind of just like, yeah, leave me alone. Let me just do it. But
that is wild, man. So that's pretty crazy. Like, to go from that with having no community to slowly integrating into like the New York community and then spending 8 years of training before you relocate to Denver. Like, what do you think was like a pivotal point in your training? Like, was there a certain like year where it kind of clicked and you're like, okay, I'm actually getting to a level where like I feel comfortable. I should be traveling to jams. I should be going to other things and introducing myself to the community.
Yeah, I think it was, so this is like, that's about the time where I meet Max. So this is about 2011, I want to say. And before that, like, I had watched up Daniel Lavaca was doing that sort of thing and saw how he was traveling around. And this is when the Stora boys were kind of starting to grow a bunch. And so the travel lifestyle was kind of starting to click in my head just from seeing it out there. I was like, oh, that looks really interesting. I want to see what's going on out in the world. And then I meet Max in 2011. Basically, I made an event on Staten Island where everybody came out to train and stuff, and he showed up. and we clicked from there. And then I just started going on trips with him. He took me to my first trip to Canada. We hung out in Boston together for the first time, for my first time there, and everything. Became known as the Squid Squad and everything. It's like intense.
Dude, that is crazy, man. You've had the opportunity to train with some of the people that I looked up to in the American parkour scene forever. Max Henry has some of my favorite jumps. Like, his legs are so powerful, man.
It's ridiculous.
It's crazy. And what I always found funny about Max was that he's so raw, can jump insane, but he's like so soft-spoken, very well educated, very well read. It's like this crazy juxtaposition, because most of the guys that train as hard as we do are kind of just like daredevils that don't care about things like school, you know?
Yeah, no, that's actually very true. And it kind of, to be fair, I think Max helped me a lot with that, because I really didn't care about it in school, especially like I had super bad senioritis my last year of high school. Like I didn't go to college or anything, and then senioritis set in super hard before I graduated. So I guess like by the end of the year, I was like, damn, did I go to math this month? Like, and so like, yeah, I meet Max, and here comes, he's just, he's read all the Harry Potter books by the time he's like 7 or 8,
Totally.
and scored like a 2200 as SAT or some stupid thing like that. I was like, this guy's ridiculously smart, and hanging around him, it kind of made me appreciate, I guess, knowledge a little bit more. Like he put it off in a more interesting and fun sense, I think. He taught me so much. I have so much to be grateful to Max for, to be honest. He, like, through all this time, he's become one of my closest friends in the world, if like top 3 fully.
So,
I mean, we literally have matching tattoos, dude.
Oh, no way, dude. What is it of?
Yeah. It's the squid right here.
Oh, no crap.
So,
Dude,
yeah.
That's a major one.
Yeah, no, it was a big one. But yeah, like he has it right on his forearm, basically. And funny time behind that one. I don't know. Did you ever watch Rocket Power?
I haven't watched Rocket Power. What's the meaning behind it?
All right. So basically, I meet Max. I start hanging out with him in Long Island, with the Long Island crew. And first day we trained together. There's this thing in Rocket Power, and like the person who's the worst is basically the squid. And so we were just making the joke the whole day about like, if you don't do this jump, or if you bitch out of a jump or whatever, you're the squid. And so we were just doing that the whole day. Then we go to Boston for Hubbable, which was like, it was like the 3rd one. So that was, I want to say 2011, 2012. I can't remember exactly. So we go to Hub, and it's the group of us that are all there. And you might know about it now. And as far as I know, no one did it before that. Maybe someone did. But there's in Baby Pool, the famous spot for the jam, there's the I-beam precision from like the big piece of concrete to the beam.
Totally know.
As far as I know, we were the first crew to do it. And like, so ever since then, we basically got known as the Squid Squad. And because we were still making the jokes like at Hub and everything about being squids and that sort of stuff. So it just kind of stuck. And for a couple of years, a group of us had made the joke about getting a matching squid tattoo.
Nice.
And so when I first moved to Denver, I think I was in Denver for maybe 6 months or so, if that. Max shows up to visit, and he's like, hey man, do you want to actually do the tattoo that we were talking about for so long? And I was just like, yes. So we found this artist in Denver, who's a guest artist from Texas. And then we both went, and they were like, let's do it. He drew out this really cool sort of image for us, because we were like, oh, we had the idea of making it gamer-ish style, so it's kind of inspired by Mario's squid.
Okay.
So he made it like a realistic squid coming out of an 8-bit world, and we were like, okay, yeah, that works. That's beautiful, actually. And so we just committed from there, and now we are forever marked.
Dude, that is a dope story, man. It's so cool to me how like these friendships and bonds can form like just from parkour, where like I feel like they're almost stronger than like the bonds with kids I met in high school and stuff like that, because you're not only bound by like your love for a movement, but it's like, especially when you're doing things like you're doing, it's like you kind of help each other out, and you're there when their life's on the line, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, and that's the thing, Max like is helped me with my life in more ways than one, even not even just training, but if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have traveled the world. I wouldn't have ended up in Denmark. I wouldn't have probably really gotten to know Dylan that well, so on and so forth. Genuinely, he was an avenue for me, and then he's also just been one of the best friends. Like, he's been a great emotional support kind of person. Like, he's helped me through so much hard stuff that, I don't know, I had to thank him, really. I don't know how to thank him properly. I just know I want him in my life forever. That's all.
Heck yeah. Shout out, Max. Much love, Max. You're one of the dopest guys of the game. Heck yeah.
Ever. And you jump mad far, and that's the thing. So that's the thing between Max and I, is I realize we have two different strengths. Like, I'll do things that make you feel like you're going to die, and then Max will do things that make you feel like you're going to break.
Dude, I do agree with that. That guy's legs are insanely strong. I always remember his legs being like gigantic. It's insane.
Oh yeah, I aspire for those quads.
Yeah, exactly. Heck yeah. Well, that's crazy, man. And you kind of alluded to it earlier, like when we first started talking about when you moved to Denver, but you literally went to Denver with the goal of training and engulfing yourself in this community with Dylan Baker and all these guys, with the hopes of like basically upping your training level and stuff like that. When you moved there, did you like hit the ground running like right away, or how did you get introduced to Dylan and form that relationship? Because it's not always easy to like move into a community.
Yeah, so I don't know if you maybe know Christian Green, potentially.
I know who he is. Yeah. Not friends, but like know who he is, yeah.
Okay, so he and I, we have a longer story too. We had like met in DC, we became really good friends, and then when I was living in Denmark, he came to visit me in Denmark, then we traveled to England together and hung out there for a little bit. And so when I was like, I want to move to Denver, he was like, yeah, come visit me. And then eventually he was like, yeah, if you want, you can live with me. And so I just got to live with him, and that made it super easy out of the gate. He was a coach at Apex. And already on top of that, I had met Dylan like 2 or 3 times. Like we had hung out in New York, and then we had hung out in Denmark as well. Same thing with Brandon.
Okay.
And yeah, basically just moved there and then hung out with Christian and just started training as much as possible, and then hit up Brandon and Dylan whenever I kind of could. And then whenever no one was available, I would just kind of go out, look at the stuff that Dylan and Brandon did, and see if I could figure it out too.
Okay.
And then it was just like, all right, I'm gonna take whatever steps. Like, here, I'm gonna do what they did. I'm gonna just go out and start looking at stuff, and just, if I know it's been done already, I know I can do it at some point then. Because that means that it's physically possible.
Okay. And this may be a weird question, but I kind of just want to get like a scope of reference, so to speak. When you first moved to Denver, let's say out of like a 1 out of 10 scale, how comfortable were you with heights and descents like that?
Like a 2.
That's pretty wild. That's wild.
I shit you not. Back when I first moved to Denver, I would be like 10 feet off the ground and be like, okay. And be like shitting bricks.
No way. Okay.
Yeah. No, it's one of the things about, I guess, I don't know if I would say I'm proud of it, but it's one of those things I realize about myself, and kind of why I don't like when people say they could never do something, because I'm like, nah, I thought I couldn't at all. And it really seems like I couldn't, but then it eventually worked. And so I think it's just as long as you have the right mindset about it, it might just take forever. Because the thing, like for me to get confident with heights, it took me overall at least like 9-10 years.
Wow.
I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah,
I do
but I
agree
just
with
wanted
you.
it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that the majority of things, like I do think that there are some people that are born with some maybe natural abilities or natural inclinations towards one sport, or maybe genetically they were exposed to some stuff that others weren't. But I'm a strong believer that everything in life is a learned ability, you know? Like I feel like as long as you put in the time and effort, you can learn anything you want to, whether that's music, parkour, you know, like anything you choose to put your mind to. I don't think anyone's born and they're like, oh, that kid's going to be a doctor when they're 1 year old. You know what I'm saying? Like, just takes time to go to school and put in all that studying, you know?
Yeah, 100%. I fully agree with that. It's basically just like, yeah, some things can give you a little bit of an advantage, but it's the footwork that really matters more than anything.
Okay. And now before we get a little bit further into like the ways that you've been able to increase and get to the level that you're at right now, how were your parents during all of this? Like, were they supportive of your parkour journey in general? And what did they think when you chose to like move to Denver to like pursue this training?
Yeah, so my parents are interesting. You know, they come from, you know, kind of hard background and everything. And granted, where I grew up, Staten Island, especially when I was in high school, it was kind of the height of the pill epidemic. So everyone was just crazy, messed up on drugs. So more than anything, my parents were like, cool, you're not like stabbing people and like doing cocaine every day. Sick. We're not worried.
So like, that's a win. We'll take it.
Take it. Like, all right, sick. And yeah, my parents were super supportive of it because it kind of gave me friends and like an avenue to kind of get out a little bit. Because like I said, I was super hermit kid. I was actually kind of chunky growing up, and basically I didn't really leave my house much, especially between the ages of like 8 to 13, 14. I was mostly just inside.
Wow.
And didn't talk to anybody really, except for like my one friend across the street. I mean, that was to go play video games.
That's funny. And so now I got to ask then, how did they feel about when they started seeing these videos of you? Did they see videos of you doing this height training and stuff like that? Did they ever get nervous or approach you and have some talks with you about it?
Yeah. So my mom was like asking me why, and we kind of can't figure it out exactly, but she just understands that I really love it, and she doesn't exactly approve, but she doesn't disapprove either. Okay. She thinks it's amazing. She's like, oh my God, I can't believe this is my son.
Okay.
But she definitely always tells me, she's like, I'm glad I can watch the video because I know you posted it and I know you're okay, so it doesn't bother me as much. She's like, but when you start telling me about stuff you haven't done yet, I just can't listen.
That's actually a good point, actually. Yeah, like it's better for her to just see the accomplished mission as opposed to thinking about what you could potentially do.
Yeah. And actually, my parents visited me once when I was in Denver, and I was like, oh, let's go to Scary Creek. I'll give you guys a tour of like the stuff I've done around here.
No way.
And like I showed my mom, like I don't know if you've seen it, but the Whole Foods descent, the one with the white rails.
Of course. Where's that? Is that Cherry Hill or where is that?
That's Cherry Creek.
Cherry Creek, okay.
And then I call Cherry Creek Scary Creek because it's the place where all the scary challenges are. Like basically not anything, but probably at least a third of the stuff Dylan, Brandon, and I have all done that's been scary has been done there.
Okay.
Like Manhood is there, the Whole Foods descent is there. The Nordy Gap, so that really big concrete is there. Yes. The big roof gap that Nate flipped is over there. Okay. So it's like all in like a 3-block radius. That's
kind of crazy. And my sister lives out in Denver, so like I've driven through that area before. What was it like? Like, are you guys allowed to train there? Because it's kind of like a nicer part of town, so to speak. Like did people freak out that you're out there doing parkour and stuff, or were you well received?
It kind of depends which roof, honestly. So like when you do the Whole Food stuff, like if you're looking at Manhood or if you're looking at the cat drops down the white rails and stuff, you're usually pretty low key. There's like this burger joint on the corner across the street. That's where you always get an audience whenever stuff is happening, and no one ever says anything bad. They're all just like, oh sick, it's not one of these crazy guys. And like actually when I did Manhood, I don't think they were a couple, but there were 2 older people from an office, not older, but they were like in their 40s. And they came down, they're like, yeah, we caught you from the office window. That was insane. They just started talking to me like what was going on. But especially if you go there on Sundays, it's super low key. Like no one even really notices you're kind of around on stuff. And if they do, they usually kind of just tell you to like skedaddle.
Yeah.
They don't really make a super big deal out of it. Also just overall, Colorado, they do genuinely have nicer police than a lot of places. They're like quite chilled out, to be fair. In my experience, at least, is like, and I've experienced police, LA, New York, Portland, like everywhere. So they definitely, genuinely, it's just some of the easiest going rooftops too.
Wow. Okay, that's pretty cool. Yeah.
That's super wild. And so like when you first moved over to Denver, you kind of mentioned that you like kind of just started like watching videos of Brandon and Dylan and trying to go to those spots and just accomplish things on your own. Have you always been someone that trains alone, or do you thrive better in groups, or do you prefer the solo training?
I'm really big on, so I'm kind of just a really huge introvert overall. Like I really do enjoy spending lots of time alone. It's kind of weird.
Same here, brother. Same here, actually.
He gets it.
Totally. I'm like an introvert extrovert, because when I do party, like I go hard and I'm the life of the party, but otherwise I'm like, leave me alone.
I only do that like once a month. That's the thing. It's like I'll do it once, then it's like, okay, it's over for now. Go away, everybody. Like I'm done. So yeah, I fully vibe with you 100%. I get it. What was I saying? I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, I was just wondering, like solo training. Are you more of a solo trainer? Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely, I've always been kind of a solo trainer. Like when I first started training, I was definitely doing it with my friends a lot more often with friends than alone. But it still was a part. Like I would still kind of go off and do my own little thing. And this is actually one of my big things now that I'm trying to get better at. So here's my thing. I at times really do enjoy training with people because it gives you a really good energy, and sometimes it's needed to like even figure a problem out. Like sometimes you're just in a weird headspace and you overthought, you looked over something and someone points out a thing you didn't notice exactly. Like, oh, you can actually put your foot right there. It's like, oh yeah, that makes this way easier.
Yeah.
Hold on. So like that sort of thing is super nice. And plus just seeing people is cool. Certain people I just love and their energy is just great to be around. But for me, I think one of my things is I really like to train solo, especially when I'm training harder stuff and scarier stuff. To some people, they're like, oh, if you're training on roofs without anybody, what happens if things go wrong? Like, you don't have anyone to help you. But my mentality about it is much more, but if I'm on a roof by myself, I'm not going to really be making stupid decisions. Like, I'm going to make a decision that's not influenced by any sort of ego or anything like that. I'm not going to be thinking, oh, I need to impress this person, so on and so forth. Because I've caught myself in those positions before, I'll admit. I'm not proud of it. But I've definitely done stuff trying to like prove something to somebody, and then I eat shit in the end, and I screw myself. It's like, I did that with two of my friends from back in the day that I hadn't seen in a while, and I was supposed to be like, oh, look, I'm cool, I can do descents now. It's like, okay, cool, let me just fall to my back from 9 feet of concrete now. It's like, that's what you get.
100%. I think we've all been a little guilty of the lack of a better term, like the showing off stage, or like even if it's once or twice. I've definitely done that before and broke myself off trying to be cool. Like it's the male ego.
The fragile ego, right?
Totally.
I gotta prove how huge my dick is.
Yeah. Dude, and like you kind of like mentioned it, but like I literally was going to ask you about that. Like if you did do a lot of the scary stuff alone, because obviously like, for lack of a better term, people always say like, oh, like since you're a kid, when you do scary stuff, like use the buddy system so you have someone there that can help you out or call for help. So like when you're doing some of these scary things and you are alone, do you have any outs in your mind? Like do you have a phone nearby, or do you just eradicate all of those fears just so you can focus on the task at hand?
I mean, really sure I've never really thought about it.
Which is probably a good thing.
I kind of I've never really thought about so deeply into like my solo training as that. Like I've always just been like, oh, I like doing it, I'm gonna go look at this roof, and then that's pretty much as far as I ever thought about it. Really. Okay. I've been in situations where I've gotten a little nervous, like climbing on a mission, and I've been like a little bit stuck, and I've been like, fuck, I wish someone was here right now.
Totally.
But yeah, no, I never really thought ahead about what I would do, to be fair. I was kind of like, well, if I fall, hopefully someone walks by and is willing to help.
Totally. Good Samaritans, yeah. Oh, that's crazy, man. And so like once you got into Denver and started like training and knocking off these missions one by one, like how long did it take during that time period of 4 years until you got to a comfortability where you went from like a 2 out of 10 on a comfort scale to getting to the level where you're at right now? Was it like something very immediate once you clicked into the scene, or did it still take time?
I feel like it was kind of a gradual thing over maybe the first 6 months of my first year there, and then I want to say the second half, it was like a like big couple peaks like right after. Because basically what kind of happened was I found the Whole Foods garage, and the cool thing about it is that you can train a lot of weird ascendy-descendy stuff that's not very difficult and also not very high up. It's like 10 to 20 feet off the ground, and it's just like weird climbs with like poles and stuff. And so I just got really used to doing that, and the climbing sort of stuff is what helped me be used to that exposure sort of feeling. Mm-hmm. So that's like one of the things. So I think that's why descents come off as so scary, is you're in that danger zone for a longer time. So when you do a roof gap, you're in the air, it's over. You do a descent, it's been 8-9 seconds, and you still haven't left that sort of danger zone,
Totally.
And so I think that started making me more comfortable. And then basically I moved to Boulder. And then when I moved to Boulder, I meet Joe Hendo because he's there for, the Apex International 2016.
Yes.
And there's this roof gap in Boulder that like a couple people had done prior. And so we had heard that Alex Shower and Ollie Thorpe were going to do it. And we were like, oh, where are they? We turn the corner and they just fly over us. And we're like, oh, sick, okay.
They did it.
And then so Joe's like, you want to go look at it? And I was like, yeah, let's go. And so I look at it, and I got there, and I was like, damn, this is scarier than I thought it was going to be. And because it's like this is like my first real actual roof gap. You know, it's like probably like 14 feet across and like 6 feet down or something like that.
Okay.
If not a little bit bigger, I'm not too sure. And it's over like 3 stories. And so I was nervous, but then I finally just did it. And then once I did that jump, all of a sudden I just felt like a kind of confidence boost. And I was like, oh, okay, heights aren't that bad. And then from there, I started just like, I think what really helped a lot too was my first descent ever was actually one of the hardest ones. I didn't realize that until after it was done. I was like, oh, I didn't realize that this was like the worst one. You might have seen it's the Boulder one that Dylan did back in the day at CU Boulder. It's like, you go from this black staircase, you drop backwards into a windowsill, and then you drop back to like this perpendicular rail. Yeah, like that. That's still one of the worst ones. It's terrible. Like everything about it is so scary. It's like, yeah, it's high, but there's also so many weird little environmental things that don't come off on camera about it.
Totally. Yeah. That is wild, man. So that kind of that roof gap with Hendo was like a turning point as far as like overcoming some fears within yourself. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, because basically it was like after that, I was like, cool, yeah, I'm gonna go do a descent. Did a descent, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna do more. And then from there, it was like a new one every month. I was like, okay. So like, I guess we're doing this.
And now being in Colorado, where like they obviously is like the mecca of all the Apex gyms and stuff like that, did you ever mix up indoor training with outdoor training, or were you solely focused on just hitting outdoor spots?
I was very big on the outdoor spots, but I did definitely go to the gym to train a lot, just to kind of get to hang out with people a little bit. Mm-hmm. Plus, like, it is fun to kind of just goof around in the gym because it kind of can give you random ideas that you maybe wouldn't have tried outside. Yeah. Because you like can't get hurt quite as much. But definitely, I would say especially my first year there, I was really big on the gym because, again, coming from New York, like, we didn't have a parkour gym until pretty much after I left. Okay. Like a real good one. And so, you know, that was my first, besides All Up, that was my first gym that I had access to that was cool, that I was like, oh, I can kind of use this all the time. Because, you know, I was in with the Apex people and everything like that, so they let me, you know, just kind of hang out and, I don't know, post about them online and everything like that.
Totally.
And also just good community, so I think they were just friendly to me because they were just super, like, welcoming and everything, so it kind of felt like a family thing.
Heck yeah. Yeah, Colorado's got a cool scene, not only for parkour, but it has one of the biggest tricking scenes around the world right now, too. And it's just really good vibes whenever we go out there. I love it. Between Denver and Colorado Springs, it's just a very, like, big family, I feel like. It's cool. It's cool vibes.
Yeah, it does. And, like, that's the thing is, like, I feel like every community in Colorado, even, like, it's tricking, parkour, climbing, hikers, whatever, like, they all kind of just hang out collectively and dabble in each other's stuff.
Totally. Okay.
So it's really cool.
And so, like, this is a question I've always had for you, like, between, like, the descent you did in Brighton, the descents in Cherry Creek, is there one that stands out as your mind as, I guess, the most difficult and scary, or, like, the most rewarding, I guess?
I want to say honestly, the difficult and scary one is I feel like one of the ones that got the least amount of play, to be fair. It's the one that Dylan did on his live stream on Facebook, like a while ago in Glendale. It's this railless garage, and the drops are gigantic. The drops are bigger than me. They're like, so I'm 6'2", so the drops are like, they have to be like, they're about the same size as me. Like when I stand on the wall you land on, and then stand up, where your foot is touches my head.
Damn, so it's a big drop commitment. Wow.
Yeah, and the thing is, the wall is about that thick. And it's concrete, but it like wobbles, and also the side of it is kind of dusty. So if you're not like conscious about it, your feet will shoot off, and you'll just drag off the wall. Oh. And that one, I think, from the level that we did it from, it's either 4 or 5. I think it's 4 stories. And the bottom level doesn't really have the greatest prep. It's, you know, it's a little bit. Just a little high off the ground. Like if you fell from the wrong spot, it would be really just bad. It would just hurt a lot, and like you might like mess your ankle up or something like that. As far as the one I would say that I'm most impressed with myself actually is one in Cherry Creek. It's the Blue Garage, because that one there's no prep level. At least not that I felt like. You can kind of prep one of the cat drops over a side, and if you fell backwards, you would fall on the sign.
Okay.
But the sign's only 2 feet wide, so if you like veer left or right a little bit, you're just gonna fall like 20 feet to the ground, or 25 feet to the ground. And so I was like, well, that doesn't make me feel any better, so I'm just gonna do it from the top.
Okay.
And so that one was a little bit of like a hard mental thing for me, because it's like, cool, I'm gonna have to do a cat drop I've never felt before, and the first one I'm trying is 4.5 stories off the ground.
Damn. Okay.
And the walls are slippery and they kind of slope downward a little bit. But it was fine, like once you kind of just do it. But that one definitely like stuck out for me as being like a one that scared me a lot when I first saw it, but I was able to work through really quickly somehow.
Okay.
I don't know where I was that day. I kind of can't figure it out. I'm trying to achieve that again.
So like you kind of just alluded to it right now, how like there are prep levels, so to speak, at certain spots. Walk us through like how you actually do these descents. Cause like you did mention sometimes with Dylan, he would just make you go to the top and go down. But let's say you go to like an average ascent or descent, walk us through your process. Like, do you go there and go to the top immediately and scout it? Or do you look for like a lower level and work on like a lower level drop? Like what's your process of working it out?
Well, I would say especially since I am more concerned with getting the kind of, quote unquote, first try or die thing, I do typically try to aim to get from as high a level as possible the first time.
Wow.
But what I do is as I first see a garage, I do look to see if there is a prep level just to see in the first place. But almost every time before I even try the prep, if there is a good prep, I just hang off the top level anyway.
Oh,
because when you hang off the top level anyway, what it does is, first of all, it gets you pumping a little bit because now you're like in an exposed position. So for one, it's a little bit of practice of just getting more used to just hanging off the side of something tall and being able to like pull yourself back up.
Okay.
But, and I'm sure when you go to heights and stuff, it skews your vision. It makes distances look further. It makes things look like in weird shapes and angles and stuff. You're like, what's going on here? So what happens is if your first experience of the thing you're trying to figure out is the hardest one, once you go back down to the bottom level looks easier because you now contemplated doing the harder one. You were like feeling it out, and like now you've got the puzzle in your brain kind of figured out already, but in a really bad situation. But when you get back to that bottom level, and you're like, oh, there's no really consequence here. Now it doesn't look as hard. You can kind of just be like, okay, let's go, and you kind of take it from there. And then if it feels as easy as you expect, you're like, oh, okay, you take it from there. You have to kind of gauge for yourself. How hard did it feel? Like, did I almost slip off? Did it feel super easy? But then even then, if it felt really easy on the bottom level, I'll still do it like 3 or 4 times just to make sure.
Okay.
Like, it's like, typically what I do is I'll do 1 and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do 5 consistent without any hiccups. And if that works, that means I can do the next level.
Okay.
And then from there, I try to not rep it as much because your forearms get super pumped. So like, I'll do like the 5, I'll do like the second story, and then I'm like, all right, cool, let's go for 3. And then once 3 happens, I'm like, all right, let's go for the top because now it's not gonna make a difference.
That's wild. And like, in addition to like your arms gassing out and stuff like that, do you ever have to deal with like adrenaline dumping? Because like for me, example, like when I do stuff like super high, my adrenaline's pumping and cooking, and like sometimes I have to just like listen to it. Like if it drops too much, I'm like, oh, I'm not there right now. Do you have to deal with that, or are you able to just push that out at this point?
Sometimes, yeah, it depends on the situation. So I guess I can hold foods, for instance. The first time I did that, from doing so many preps in the bottom and just getting more so my arms pump more than anything, I did it from the top once and was like, yeah, I don't have any more in me. I'm not going to chance it. It's not worth it.
Okay.
Though the second time I went back, I was able to pull it off twice in the same day.
Oh, dope.
And after the second one, it was on the top level too. I did the bounce back from the, like the drop cat.
Yeah.
And then you have to kind of go behind because you have to go behind the rail and there's a wall there. I like punched the wall before I hit the rail. So like my hand was just bleeding and I was like, cool, just keep going the rest of the way. But there's been a couple actually, like I said, I guess it depends on the difficulty, because then there's like the illegal peas descent in Boulder, the one behind the burrito place. It's like the big one that everyone does out there. When I did that and we filmed that, it was physically much easier than I expected. So we were filming and I literally repped it out like 10 times. So we were like, yo, we gotta get the shot right. And I was like, fine, like, let's go. But certain ones, I just can't do that. Like, there's certain ones I'll only do once. And I'm just like, cool, I'm not doing that again. I'm over it, that was too much. Like, so it's definitely, it really depends on the situation. But usually what happens, for me at least, is I really don't get very adrenal when I'm doing my biggest stuff.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm very, like, I really like Dylan's quote, calmness in the face of adversity. I don't know where he got it from exactly. I don't know if that's his own or if he got it from somewhere. But I'm very much someone who enjoys when it's a calm, conscious decision to do the hard, scary thing, or whatever you want to call it. Like, because that's the thing. In my head, when I'm doing it, it doesn't feel hard or scary when I have actually decided. I mean, the build-ups do, the prepping to it does, like you feel the nerves, you feel that sort of thing, but I keep it at bay. Like I don't allow it to shake my head up that much.
Okay.
And then once I've made my decision that I really want to do this, it sort of just goes away. And like the height doesn't really exist in my head, and if I'm not having fun doing it, I can't do it. So basically anything that you've seen that's big is in my head, I'm like, yay! Like it's like a little kid who's at a park, like, this is so much fun.
Totally. And I guess that makes sense from the standpoint that like you're obviously not going to do something that you're not comfortable with. So like if you're committing to it, you're like, okay, I got this, you know?
So like, you know, for instance, like manhood, there was no, you know, every time I looked at it and couldn't do it, I was terrified. Mm-hmm. But the day that I finally did do it, I was kind of confused by how calm I felt. Because usually there is like a little bit of like heightened.
Little butterflies, a little something, yeah.
It's like, you're like, I gotta pay attention. But for that one, I literally felt like I was doing a con cat like 4 feet off the ground in my head. And then I did it and was like, how'd that work? Like, how'd that feel so easy? How do I make that happen? Like, it's like the Avatar thing. How do I get this all the time?
Yeah, how can I replicate this feeling? Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I want to be this 24/7 every day. I want to just be doing roof gaps, 6, 7 stories off the ground and not even thinking.
Hell yeah. And now I don't mean to jinx you, and if this is a topic you don't want to talk about, we can skip over it, but I just wanted to know, like, have you ever had any like slips or fails that freaked you out? I think I've seen a video of you once where you like go for a descent and like I think you kind of slip and your feet swing underneath almost. And I see you look back at the camera and I'm like, oh crap.
So I definitely, you know, I think it goes to say you do deal with your share of just slips and spooks. You're like, oh yeah, I should watch out for that. Mm-hmm. I've definitely had plenty. So yeah, the one you just mentioned, that's the illegal Pete's garage. So that one actually was funny because it made me a little nervous because basically what I realized, I was getting too ahead of myself. I was like thinking the speed too much and not about control. Mm-hmm. And so what kind of happened, it doesn't make sense in my head, was after that slip, I couldn't do the descent on that side of the garage anymore. Because technically that side of the garage, like the bottom level of it is still like 10 feet off the ground.
Yeah.
And it just messed with my head for some reason. But somehow I could go to the 4th level on the side that's like 10 feet lower to the ground and still do it. And it wouldn't bother me. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense in my head, but I'm just going to roll with it, I guess. And yeah, actually, to be fair, I did have one bail that was really bad. I mentioned it earlier. It's the one where I bounced off the garage when I was hanging out with my 2 friends.
Yeah.
That one definitely put some crap in my head.
Okay.
And that one happened before Whole Foods too. So that was like a thing I had to think about while I was up there. Basically, the garage I fell off of, the walls are really long. So like usually when I hang off like the quote unquote easier garages, when I hang off them, the wall is like at my hip level.
Yeah.
When you hang off this one, it's like mid shin. And so you have to like lean back a whole bunch. And then the rail is really close to the top, so you have to sit in a really low position and catch it. And basically what happened was my feet hit, and then I went to go grab the rail and just missed. And so I basically did a bounce back, but bounce back straight backwards, like laying flat, like this is my back, and then basically just boom, 9 feet down to the ground. Ooh. And I was totally fine. Like I strained my wrist a little bit, and I had like a bruise in my butt cheek, but I was physically totally fine, and my friend existed. He was literally on the phone, looked at me. He's like, "Yo, you okay?"
It's like, Nick, you dead man?
Like, I mean, he looked at me and said, he's like, "I watched you fucking die."
Yeah, exactly.
And I was like, "Yeah, dude." And like right after that, I was like, "Yo, if that happens at the top, I'm dead." Like, and so what I did basically was like 3 days later, we went to Boulder. And I went back to the illegal Pete's garage because I had already done it and I know how like easy it is to me normally.
Yeah.
And so I was like, cool, I'm gonna at least look at it and try to get this thing out of my head. Okay. And then so I think it was like, it might have been, was it 3 days? It was within a week, I know that. But I went there and was just like, I can't let this sort of just stop me and let it be a fear that blocks me. And so I reworked that garage and did it from the top again and was like, okay, I can still do these. I have to make sure I pay attention to that bail and like allow it to be a space in my head and know that it can happen. And because it can happen, take whatever steps I have to take to ensure it's not. And to feel for it. It's like, do I at all feel like that's going to happen here? And I think since then, I've definitely taken a step back from doing the sense as much in the sense of like, I'll say no to them more often. Probably like, I feel a little off, so it's just not worth it. I've already like fallen in a weird enough position that I know how bad it can be, and I don't want to do that.
Totally.
So like when I did Whole Foods, it was kind of a block. Like I kept doing the second story, and then even though the second story is technically like the fourth story, that garage is weird. The way it's laid out, it's like you clear 5 stories in 3 or 4 garages. I don't understand how it works.
Yeah.
But basically every time I would go to the top level, I would look and then I'd be like, if I do that bounce back, it's like, it's black, that's it. Like we're going black here. And so I just had to it was like a real battle. It took me, I think the day of, it took me like 40 minutes of like warming up and prepping the lower levels to finally be like, okay, I'm gonna go now.
Okay.
Because it was a really big problem for me. It was really something that like wouldn't get out of my head. I was like, I really don't want to go to my back. I really don't want to go to my back up here. Like, and then after that, it reboosted my confidence a bit more. And now it stays in the back of my mind to this day, and it's gonna forever.
Totally.
But it doesn't interfere quite as much as I thought it would.
Okay. No, that's fair enough. Yeah. I mean, it definitely makes sense though. I've had some things happen to me like doing stunts in the industry where after I got injured, I had to kind of like break the gun shyness and get back onto the saddle, so to speak, like when you fall off, you got to get back on again. So I can only imagine what it's like falling from on a descent and then being like, okay, well, let's do that again. Yeah.
Yeah, let's go in the worst position and try it again.
Hell yeah.
Let's go back up. And then, there's one, I don't know if you know what roof gap this is, but it's the roof gap that Nate front flipped or side flipped. I'm not exactly sure. But Dougie and I did it back in the day, not back in the day, like 2 years ago. It's like a 16, 17-foot roof gap,
wow.
Like a 7-foot drop. And it's over, again, 3 stories or something like that. The thing that makes it hard or scary is your run-up, is you have to run up on the edge of the building, which is like, probably like 3 feet wide, but it's that shiny metal.
The slick stuff.
Yeah.
I hate that.
And so we didn't do the store and we didn't put the tape. And so, we just dealt with it. And so I'm doing some prep runs and, you jog up to the edge and like, you break yourself to, not fall off the edge. And so I was taking like 2 or 3 run-ups to it before I was about to go. And it's dusty.
Yeah.
And so I go to take the run-up and I go to stop myself and brake. And then I just don't stop. I start sliding. And so I literally slid to like the edge of the roof. No. And then Dougie's on a roof, like somewhere across yonder with like my phone filming. And I just see his face like. And I was like, it's good. It's fine. I'll be all right.
Holy crap, dude. That is wild. That is wild, man.
Yeah. And the cop showed up and I was like, cool, cop here, peace. Boom, 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 boom. Go.
Dope.
And good times.
Hell yeah. And now there's a quote on your Instagram. It's on a video where you're like balancing on a rail, and it's something like, I'm not going to try to quote it perfectly, I'll mess it up, but you're basically saying like height training is almost like playing your favorite video game on its hardest level over and over again. So my question to you is like, what advice do you have for parkour athletes that are trying to take their training to the next level and get into these like more dangerous descents and roof missions, so to speak?
First things first, have respect. So it's kind of one of those rules from surfers, which like surfers, they always respect the ocean because they realize the power of it and what it can do to you.
Totally.
And I think that's super rule number one. Like, if you're going to be messing with heights, realize you are dealing with something legitimately, it is dangerous. I mean, risk can be low, don't get me wrong, but risk is low in a car too. If you're drunk driving a car, it's dangerous.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Yeah. So really just respect the thing you're dealing with. Make sure you are paying attention to the height, especially, and don't get overconfident and forget about things. Don't think that because you've gotten so comfortable and because you've gotten good at it, that you can just be willy-nilly and not think about it, because that's when you're gonna mess up. That's when you think it's too easy. But then the second thing would definitely make sure you take it as slow as possible, in the sense of basically redoing your training. Okay. So what I mean by it's like playing your favorite video game just on hard mode. It's kind of like, like your Resident Evil 4 or most Resident Evil games. It's like you beat the game and then you get to do a second playthrough of it, but sometimes they make like enemies more strong and that sort of thing. It's basically doing that. So you have to start from level 1 again, except in the harder situation. Your enemy is a lot stronger now. So you have to approach it differently. So now, you can do a 14-foot gap 5 feet off the ground, but when you get 5 stories off the ground, you're maybe going to do a 2-foot gap.
Totally.
Especially at first. So what I mean was cool, I can do 16 feet between 2 walls on the ground. That doesn't mean I can do heights out of the gate. So when I got up there, I literally had to just go to the edges of rooftops and just walk around on them. I was like, cool, I'm not doing exactly what I want to do, and it's not parkour per se, but it is helping me along this process. It's getting me exposed. It's exposure therapy, if you will. So it just lets you be comfortable being at height in and of itself.
Totally.
So, there's that saying, before you can run, you have to walk. Before you walk, you got to crawl, so on and so forth. You have to do the same thing. So take your balancing, put it to height. Now take your basic precisions, put it to height. Take your running on stuff on the ground, I've learned how to run on skinny walls. Now that you've done jumps at height, learn how to run on skinny walls at height, and so on and so forth. And then the biggest thing is want it and have fun.
Totally.
Because if you're not having fun with it, I think it makes it more dangerous, because you're just putting kind of too much pressure on it.
Yeah.
And I think putting too much pressure and external approval on things that could be of that magnitude, if something bad were to happen, I just don't think it's worth it. In my head.
Totally.
I mean, there could be a little bit to that for social creatures. I mean, if people seeing you do it and inspiring people will do it, get you stoked, that's fine. But it's just not as your main motivator. There's got to be a piece of you, at least a huge half of you, that wants to do it just because you think it's exciting. Just because you're well, even if nobody was watching, I was going to do this crap anyway. Because that's for me at least. Anything that I've done for the camera was the second thought. I was oh cool, I really want to do this thing, but also it'll look cool as hell on a video.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man.
And so with that being said, with all of the clips that you've accumulated, obviously a lot of people freak out when they see these types of movements and the heights that you're at, and kind of for lack of a better term, the death-defying stunts that you're pulling off successfully. I know that you've started to amass this giant following on TikTok. You have over 250,000 followers on there. Are you now focusing on putting out content for the sake of building an audience or making a career off it? Are you able to monetize those followers at this point yet?
Yeah, so I've monetized a small amount, enough to eat a little bit, which is pretty, that's nice enough.
Totally.
But really, I think for me, my avenues are kind of changing. For a while, I still want it to be an inspiration thing. I've always kind of wanted to reach a point where I could basically tell people that they can do whatever they want. And for me, that's telling them through movement. So, I was always a kind of not athletic kid. And especially when I first started parkour, I got a lot of shit for it. People calling me gay and a bunch of weird words and just being super mean about it, honestly. And it's weird now, because now those same people are oh, you're doing such crazy shit. And I'm yeah, bro. But yeah, I really want to just make it I honestly, biggest thing for me is I want to make parkour kind of part of the mainstream of being cool. I don't want it to be looked at as such a weird thing. And for me, I want it to be accessible to people like me. So I'm like a Hispanic kid who grew up in a white neighborhood out in New York who felt like he couldn't like touch a lot of things. And I realized that in this community, minorities don't feel as like spoken for. And even though I definitely look more white than anything, I do feel like I'm put in more of a position where I can get kids like from the Bronx and that sort of stuff who are dealing with like some tremendous hardship to at least have an avenue where they can like release a little bit and not just be fucking around gangbanging, for lack of a better way of putting things.
Yeah, totally.
And then as far as putting a career onto things, yeah, honestly. I mean, biggest thing for me is I really want to be in a video game one day. Honestly, I want to do mocap so bad. Like, it's like, dude, if I could just do the thing that inspired me the most, because that's what it is. Like, I literally modeled my life after Link in The Legend of Zelda. I was like, cool, I'm gonna go travel the world by myself and just do crazy adventures. And so, like, I would love to, even if it's not actually me, I'm just a model of someone else, be that for another kid. It's like, yeah, this kid changed his whole life because he saw someone in just like this digital world. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. And then for me personally, I just feel like I'm physically peaking, and I've been taking a lot of care of my body recently. Got like really involved in PT and that sort of stuff.
Dope.
And so now I'm feeling the strongest I've ever felt, and I kind of want to just see what I can do.
Okay.
Just like what my body can do. I'm like, cool, like I still got at least 4 or 5 strong years in me. I want to see like what can kind of happen.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel you, man. It's a crazy thing as you start to get older. It's something that you don't really think about when we're like teenagers or first getting into the sport. But like I'm at that point now where like I feel like the hourglass on my training is more full on the bottom half, if that makes sense, you know? Like I'm seeing the sand fall and I'm like, dog, how much time do I have left? It's crazy. It's crazy, man. Yeah, because like for me, for example, like I've been training a lot with a Bailey Payne who's just getting into parkour. Like he's a year into parkour. And like, we'll go to spots and I'm like, I'll like show him a video of like things I did 10 years ago. And I'm like, I'm not going to do it today, but like, here's me doing it. Like, you should do it now. Yeah. And he's like, oh, all right, cool. You know, like, but like, yeah. But with that being said, like, I do find myself like trying to push it really hard. Cause I do feel like, damn, I only got maybe a few years left, like not only like on my body, but like also just like, at a certain age, like I'm probably not gonna be wanting to just do these things in general too, you know? Like it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, like do you find yourself having that weird kind of brain switch that apparently happens between like the ages of like 26 to 30 or maybe 30 on kind of, where you're like, ooh, I feel way less risky all of a sudden.
Dude. 100, bro. Or like when I was younger, like I'd always be like, oh yeah, I'm down to try that. Now I'm kind of like, you know what? I've done that stuff. Like I'm kind of like set within like what I want to do now within my mind. You know what I'm saying? Like I can still, there's like certain moves that like for example, like this is going to sound super funny to you. I can't tell you how many years it's been since I've just done like a standing backflip. And it's not because I can't do a backflip. It's just like, I don't care about doing backflips anymore, dog. You know, like I could clearly still do moves way harder than a backflip. I just haven't been like, let's just do a standing tuck.
But can you backflip, bro?
Yes, exactly. It's the most common question asked, which is so funny.
Right now, you can throw corks, you can throw all this other kind of crap. You can't backflip anymore.
Yeah. It's funny. Like I know I can backflip. It's just not in my like. It doesn't come across my brain to be like, oh, let's just do a backflip for no reason anymore. You know, it's so funny.
Yeah, it's generally like it's like part of. I think it's one of those things. I think at this point you're such a master that it's kind of a basic that's gonna stick with you.
Just take it for granted, yeah.
It's just one of those things. You're gonna be like 90 and be like, well, I can still do it. Just kind of. It's like it's only a wedding trick though. That's not gonna get it done.
Dude, I have a friend who's her dad she's like a world champion wushu martial artist, and her dad was like an ex-acrobat and martial artist too. And every year on his birthday, his wife or her mom would make her dad do a round off back handspring backflip or a handstand as his yearly check. And as far as I remember, he was still able to do round off backflip till he was like mid-70s.
What?
Yeah.
That's close to me right now. Like, wait, you can do that?
It's like. It's so, bro. I got to get her on a JAMCast so we could talk about it. Because when I heard that, I was like, what?
I want to know what he's doing.
Yeah.
On here. I want to understand what this guy did to be able to be pulling that off in 70. Because I at least want to still be doing like, 1 to 2 story like descents or something when I'm 70. Like, why not?
That'd be dope.
Because like, how cool would that be? Like, imagine being old as hell and then this dude comes down the side of the building and you're like, whose grandpa is this?
And then you just pick up your cane and keep going.
You're like, oh, my hip hurts.
That is funny as hell, man. That's crazy.
One thing, actually, for real, one piece of advice for descents. If you do crane drops, train both legs or you will shift your hips and fuck with your spine.
Good note.
Think about like repping out a garage. Like, you're training at the bottom level. You're going to do that 5 times the same leg. Now, if you rep out the garage itself a couple times, you're doing 4 or 5 reps at least on the just run through of the garage. So all in all, imagine just doing 20, like with 200 pounds to your back, 20 lunges on one leg, and then not doing the other leg.
Yeah. Just
you're gonna
totally
shift over weird.
That's crazy, man. And now you kind of mentioned that like you're starting to do PT and take your maintenance a lot more seriously, so you're feeling stronger than ever. At this point right now, like how many days a week do you train, and how long are these training sessions?
All right. So, like just parkour training?
Yeah, parkour training, PK in general, yeah.
Parkour probably still at least 3-4 times a week.
Okay.
Depending on my schedule, if I can get 5, I'll go for 5. And when I'm just training technique and that sort of thing, I'll usually give myself like up to 2 hours, and then I cut myself off.
Okay.
But when I go mission, I give myself a whole day. So I'll straight up just kind of be like, cool, I'm going to go to this area of so-and-so city at 11, and then I'll stop when I just feel like I can't move anymore. And, that'll be however long, sometimes until like 6 p.m. I'll just be walking around the city for miles and then just climbing roofs, finding what I can find. And because between that, I'm like both scouting and training at the same time. I'm like looking at ideas that I can find that seem interesting that maybe I'm not ready for.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, I'm also looking for stuff that in the moment I'm like, oh yeah, I'll do this. And to also just keep my head moving.
And so can I ask what made you determine that 2-hour cutoff for the other training sessions? Like, was that from experience, or like what made you come to that conclusion or decision?
It kind of seems to be the point where I start to because like I said, I'm kind of addicted to parkour. I'm like really obsessive, and that's just me. I live with that. And so I'll just go. Like, I'll just keep going. And I've definitely had the experience where I'm like 3-4 hours in, and I'm definitely too fatigued to be trying this stuff and trying. And then actually it happened recently when I was in LA. I was with Nate, and I was with Nate, Sydney, those were a bunch of people. And that spot at UCLA, it's the walls with the tree next to it, next to like the fountain thing. It looks like a toilet.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I know.
So there's like the double column pre, and we were prepping that. And I was already like 3.5 hours of training, I want to say, like doing descents and a bunch of other stuff. Like I trained with the crew before, and then they showed up, so I was training with them after.
Yeah.
And so we were going for the double column pre, and I was giving it one more prep before I went. And on the second wall, my arms just fully couldn't hold any more weight and just let go entirely. And I just went chin first into the wall. I had to get like 6 stitches in my chin.
No way.
Yeah, I was like, oh wow, I wasn't ready. I was like, I literally hit the wall, and I looked at Nate, and I was like, did my face hit the wall? He's like, I think so. I heard it. So I was like, yeah. Then I started walking towards him, and I was like, oh yeah, I see spots.
Ooh,
Crazy. Right? And then he looked at my chin, and he's like, I think you need a stitch. Then I looked down, and just blood fell from my face. And yeah, I was like, okay, cool. New rule: cut yourself off before you get too tired, because you get hurt that way.
Hell yeah.
So that's more of a recent development for me, to be fair.
Okay. Well, all good tips that you learn along the way, like honestly, it's all part of the journey, and hopefully kids will be able to listen to your experiences on here and take it into account, and kind of learn from them so they don't make the same mistakes.
Yeah, I hope so. Cause like, they're pretty rough, some of them. They're just like, you're like, oh man, like that face one really hurt. Or when you just like a rib or rail, that's always good.
Feel that.
Yeah. Definitely like pay attention to your body, like try not to go too hard for too long, because like I think that's the biggest thing that hurts people the most. I gotta be honest with you, because you realize people typically get hurt at events, and it's usually like the second or third day in. It's like, yeah, you've been training for like 2-3 days straight, and like you've been sleeping in gyms with a bunch of other dirty people, and you slept like 6 hours a night. You're not going to be feeling great. Like, you're not going to be able to do like your highest stuff each one of those days, man.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, basketball players have like super nice bougie hotels, and they rest like 2 days before their game.
Totally. And they got trainers massaging them, giving them food. Yeah,
exactly. Like, so you got to definitely pay attention to what's kind of going on, especially as time goes on. You get a bit older.
Totally.
Like, once I hit 24, I was like, damn, I got to start warming up for real. Otherwise, things don't work.
Yeah, totally. It's kind of like how you said, like, height training is like playing your favorite video game at a high level. You also got to take into account your XP level and let it like recharge, you know?
Yeah, that's what I feel like right now. Because you know what I'm telling myself? I'm like, okay, I'm level 27, and Pokemon level 32 is the final evolution. I still got a little while.
Yeah.
Like, that's where you get like peak strength.
Yes. Hell yeah, dude. Well, that's crazy, man. And more than anything, like, I'm stoked that we live in an age right now where we have access to a lot of these things. Like, back when I was training and you know, like before we talked off air, like, you know, you mentioned that like you saw Ultimate Parkour Challenge before, like UPC and stuff. We really didn't have like a lot of stuff frequently put on YouTube, online and stuff like that. So like, I'm stoked that we're in an era now where we're able to continue to like watch your achievements and watch your missions constantly put out online and stuff like that. I think it's the coolest thing about it.
No, for sure. I appreciate that, man. And overall, I think even just building on it, I think parkour culture and all like the kinds of resources that are on the internet, and I mean, granted, COVID's happening, but gyms are opening. Yeah. How many more gyms and access to teachers that we have these days?
Totally.
Like, it's something I couldn't have imagined when I first picked up parkour. Because like, it's a weird question to me now, actually. You know, people are like, "Oh, what gym did you start training at?" And I'm like, "What?"
Save here, yeah.
I'm from the streets, kid.
Exactly. School of Hard Knocks. What's up?
Walls hurt.
Yes, dude. Now that's funny.
Flips on grass.
Dude, you want to hear something super funny, man? I just did a JAMCast with Kaylin Chan, and Kaylin Chan started parkour by going to classes. And when he first went to classes, he was terrified of doing front flips. He literally told them, "Nah, I only do backflips." And then he said he saw them do dive kongs, and he was like, "Maybe I'll do that like 5 to 10 years from now."
What?
And now my man.
Kaylin Chan?
Yes.
Kaylin Chan?
Yeah.
So
So,
like,
It was like, I'm scared of front flips and dive kongs.
So how crazy is that though, that like there is this new generation of kids like Kaylin Chan who like just won, you know, the second to last Tempest freerunning competition, and he's inventing moves, yet he started by going to a class and was terrified of doing a dive kong, you know? Like, how crazy is that?
That's amazing. No, it's just incredible. And honestly, it makes me feel better. Like, that was kind of nice for me to hear. Just like, like, and that's one of those things, you know, it's cool to hear someone who's like so good, so ridiculously good, to be like, oh, they have an origin story. They weren't just like out of the womb doing dubs like crazy. Like, they're real people who had to put effort in and actually, you know, fix a problem, like solve a problem.
Totally, man. Totally. And that's why these things are so valuable. And more than anything, like, I hope not only do I get to learn stories and interact with people like yourself, but more than anything, I hope that it's just like a way for the younger generations to learn and hear and learn from our experiences in our past, and hopefully save themselves some time, and also, you know, maybe be able to last longer in our career by learning from our mistakes, you know?
Oh yeah. And it's like kind of passing the torch a little bit, because it's like, here's the thing in my head is, like I said, you know, I'm looking to see whatever I can push. It's like, yeah, I'm going to see whatever I can push, but then I also want to see whatever that kid right now who's like 6, who in 10 years sees what I did, and it's like, oh, how can I build on that? What's he going to think of? Like, that's going to be, because even think about it right now, 10 years ago, we were talking about, oh, wouldn't it be funny if someone did this double side free? And what do you know what happened?
Yeah. 100%, dog. Yeah, it's surreal to me, dude.
The way things can just progress right now because of technology, the evolution is, I mean, parkour short time, 10 years. We did what skateboarding did in 20 years in 10.
Totally.
Like, in terms of like building a culture around it.
Yeah, sky's the limit, man. I'm super, super stoked to just be here and still alive and part of the community enough that I can still witness it and watch the growth of it. I'm super stoked to see where it goes.
Yeah, it's going to be buck wild, especially with people like Dom and Kadori around.
Yeah.
We get wild.
Pushing it. Hell yeah, man. And so, yo, before we get out of here, one of the things that I always ask people, just for like a frame of reference and also to kind of just put it out there and see like where you're at, is where do you see yourself 5 years from now? And where do you see yourself 10 years from now? And this could be parkour related or life related, either one.
I would say 5 years parkour related. Just still training as much as humanly possible, I think, and just really pushing myself physically. And I'm probably gonna stay on the East Coast for that time. Then I want to say in 10 years, I do look on to probably pull back from doing as much intensity because I am just gonna start getting older. My body's not gonna be able to do it as hard. And then from there, I'm either just gonna do some kind of programming or move to Australia and work at some kind of sanctuary for animals, because I'm a huge animal geek. Like, you know, I just love literally anything that like breathes and moves. Like, even if it's something I don't necessarily like crazy big centipedes, I still can't kill it and whatever. I'll still hold it and try to figure it out and work on not being afraid of it. But yeah, I think full on life goals is after I can't do parkour anymore. Just fully, really big goals, deal with big cats.
Ah, dope. Hell yes. All right. Well, dude, I'm interested to see what happens with that. That'll be crazy. It'll be 2 jobs where we have to deal with fear training.
Yeah, I know, right? It's a whole different kind now. It's just a whole other brain against me.
Totally.
Like, are you angry right now?
Yeah. That is wild, man. Well, yo, more than anything, dude, I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to like come here and share your insights and give a little like a little perspective into like what happens in your brain and stuff. Like, I know that I continue to follow your journey online, and I know everyone else does too. So, dude, I appreciate it. Thanks for coming through.
Dude, thank you for having me, honestly. Like, when you asked me to be on here, I was like, whoa, Travis Wong wants me to, like, talk to him? That's crazy. That's sick. Hold on. This dude, for real, I was, like, 15 watching you on TV, and just, you were a hero to me. Dude. And so it's just, I don't know, it's genuinely an honor to actually be on here and get the chance to conversate with you and actually see you as a real person and understand that we actually vibe a lot more than I expected. And like, you're a lot more like me than I expected, which is like reassuring. Totally. And you're just generally like one of the coolest dudes ever. And I appreciate everything from being an inspiration from when I was a kid and to even just have me on right now and all the chats we've had and everything. Like, you're still super fun to watch and you're just killing the game entirely.
Dude, I appreciate that, man. It means a lot, man. And I'm super stoked that we had the chance to sit here and do this. It's kind of crazy. People may not know this, but like, we've never really like met in person and hung out and stuff. This is like our first real like genuine chat. And dude, no, this is the first time we've gone like voice to voice. Yeah, we just normally just IG messages.
yeah so go with my Instagram friend, guys.
Yeah, dude. Nah, that's cool, man. It just speaks to like what parkour can do, like bring people together that have never met each other, and we can sit here and talk for such a great length of time about something that we both love. It's so cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just you got friends all over the world. Like, literally with parkour, you can basically find anywhere to sleep.
That's true.
Go to England, go to Germany, go to Japan. You go to one of them, someone's got you.
100. That's definitely one of the coolest things, man. Yeah, it's like it's an insane community, man. And like, before we get out of here, just so people can continue to like stay up to date with your personal journey and reach out to you if they want a place to stay in PA, can you let people know where to follow you online?
Yeah, you can find me at Nick Ortiz, KNCKR. It's probably going to be on the thing.
It'll be on.
But little planned words my friend came up with from back in the day. And it just happened to be my name. And I was like, oh, that's funny. Hell yeah, worked out. But yeah, keep up, hang out. I'm basically just going to be training as much as humanly possible, just doing as much stuff that scares the crap out of me. Because, I don't know, I have a weird addiction to fear, I think. Fear and dark stuff. Like, I don't know, it's my head.
That's awesome, man. Well, dude, everyone, like you said, go check him out online and continue to follow the journey. And, more than anything, thanks for stopping by, bro. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, hit me up. When next time you're on the East Coast, or when I come to LA, I'm coming to hang out and do some craziness. I promise.
Dude, 100, bro, 100. I was bummed. I saw you got to train with Bailey, so next time I'm going to make it out there. We'll get a session in. So.
Oh, yeah. No, Bailey's a lovely human.
Yes.
That kid is the man.
He's the man.
Hell yeah. Well, guys, with that being said, guys, please be sure to hit that like button, comment, subscribe for brand new episodes each and every week. Join us every Monday for Jam Breakdowns and every Friday for brand new JAMCast, interviewing influential members of the movement community like Mr. Nick Ortiz himself. So with that being said, guys, I got to give one more special shout out to our guest this week, Mr. Nick Ortiz. Thanks for coming through, homie.
I really appreciate you so much. And for everybody listening, thank you so much. I appreciate you being sweet as all hell and supporting us and just being cool. And if I see you in the world, we'll jump around and we'll go get buck wild. I promise. Just say hi.
Hell yes.
Genuinely, dude, I'm just welcome to anybody. If you want to come do crazy shit, I'm down to do crazy shit for you. I'm keen.
Damn, hell yes, dude. Well, we'll definitely get a session in soon, yo. And as always, guys, coming through. I'm your host, Travis Wong. Thanks for joining us here on another JAMCast. Until next time, we'll see you all soon. Peace.